This is time for free your mind and your soul. Yo, half the story has never been told. Ladies, you got to demand what you want, and what we want is respect, right? Yo, just sit up on the track, I know so you have to deal with it right. Freedom every time for the sisters. Check this. Watch this.
Here we go now. Listen, if I'm boom boom rule, I be the ruler like Slick Rick. Get with this quick witted Adidas wearing chick. Papa got a brand new bag. Mama got a brand new Jag. Or go tag. I ain't no old hag. I represent not only in the kitchen, in the bedroom, but also in the boardroom. So give me more room. Deny my opportunity. You in jeopardy. Yo, set me free. Don't hinder me. Let me be.
I'm fighting for freedom. I got the heat in case you need them. Straight soldier. Ain't nobody told ya. Hold up on them lies. I know your games and your plans.
Hello everybody, welcome to another Book Slam Extra. I'm your host Jules. I hope you've had a good week. I have had a very nice week, thank you very much. I do hope that you're ready for another really exciting deep dive into another topic. Today we are looking at villains. And I thought that would be quite interesting topic to talk about because everyone loves a good villain. Villains are becoming quite popular. And we always like to have a good villain origin story as well. And also, the stronger our characters are, the stronger the villain has to be. So that's quite important. So anyway, I'm your host, Jules. Welcome. I am a publisher. I do traditional publishing. I do some hybrid publishing, but most of it's through traditional. I also do this every week, which we will have some more announcements about some of the upcoming events that are linked to this show a little bit later in the program. And I'm an author. I write dark fantasy, and I also write science fantasy and sword and sorcery, Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of thing. And yeah, I love it. Writing is something that I find very therapeutic. I don't know if you're a writer or if you're a reader or if you do both. The writing process is something that can be quite daunting for some people. So one of the things that we try and do on this show is actually unpack it a little bit. And if you come away having an extra tip in your back pocket that you could potentially use in your own writing, then we have done our job. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome to the stage my beautiful co-host Reese and my lovely co-host Adam. And we can have a quick chat about what they've been getting up to. Okay. Welcome. Hang on, let me see if I can figure out these buttons a bit better. Oh no, that will put us side by side. I'll leave us like this for now. Otherwise we'll be like this. How are you though? How are you doing?
Great. Had a good week. Yeah.
Good.
I am in the rain right now. So hopefully it's not picking up in the mic.
I can hear. Oh, is that what it is? I thought it was like interference with the mic, but it's obviously rain. That's cool.
It's pouring, unfortunately. So if it gets kind of crazy while we're in the mix, I'll definitely mute myself.
Am I weird for life in the rain?
I know, right? This is the perfect writing weather right now.
Yes, it is perfect writing weather. We have a conservatory, and so when it rains, being outside in the conservatory is quite nice because you're as out in the garden as you possibly can be, but not quite enough there. But you can hear all the noise, and yeah, I think my favourite type of weather is got to be thunderstorms. I love a good thunderstorm.
Yep.
The bigger, the better. So, have you both had a good week?
Yes, it has been crazy. Got another review in this week from one of the authors that I met at the Black Ink Book Festival this weekend.
Nice.
Who will be joining us next month.
Yay!
And yes, and I also have another author that's going to be coming in. He does fantasy based on African mythology, so this is going to be cool.
Wow.
And like I said, he'll actually be available this month. Yes, so he'll be available this month to come and chat with us as well. I'm looking forward to it because I have been enjoying all of the authors that have been coming in, and just their different, the different genres that they're involved in, and then their different takes on their writing process. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's such a. I love building this community. Or I'm not. Like, obviously, did it on my own. Actually, you both have a massive part in that as well. But I really enjoy this part of it. It's a wonderful experience, and very privileged, I think. To be able to do this. So, would you like to both introduce yourselves? Adam, would you like to go first? I know I let Reese normally go first, but would you like
You've said that the past couple of weeks. No, I think
I
Reese
know.
needs to go first. You
Oh,
keep
okay,
saying
that's
that.
fine. We'll skip to the youth one.
I'll go.
You go, Reese. I love you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Reese, aka Reese the Storyteller. I am a poet and author of Trapped, book 1 in the Trapped series. Book 2 is coming this summer. I have been writing, God, probably since I could pick up a pen, but seriously into my craft since I was in middle school and high school, and just loving the process. It has been amazing meeting so many different authors and getting different ideas from them to grow myself and my presence as well. So always a pleasure to be here with y'all.
Yay.
And it's always a privilege having you here as well. Yeah, it's amazing. Last but not least at all, Adam.
Hi, I'm Adam Andrews Johnson. I write dark fantasy and light fantasy. My new dark fantasy book, The Mantis variant, has just come out. I'm really excited about it. It's pretty horrible and twisted, and terrible things happen constantly, like through the whole thing, which is fun and exciting. And I've also written a high fantasy book that Jules is releasing with her publishing company, which I'm super, super excited about. Probably early 2024. We've got a ways to go with that. But that book is mostly a study of character development and this crazy world that I've put together. It's a celebration of people mostly. There's a lot of queer characters, and it's a queer norm world where no one has to overcome anything for who they are with their sexuality or their orientation. So that book I'm really excited about. But there's more villains in this book, so I'll be focusing on that today. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, do you know what? And I'm so excited about the book that we're working on together as well, which is...
That's some villainy right there as well. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, we could, couldn't we, talk a little bit about what we're doing in that.
Can't wait for that one.
Yeah. Why don't you introduce the idea? Tell people what we're working on.
So for quite a few years now, I've wanted to work on a collaboration with someone, and Adam just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and I kind of pitched an idea to him, which I think you quite liked. It's a bit different. So it's basically about a stalker. And I tell you what, the research is awesome. If you like forensic psychology or crime or thrillers or anything like that, it's amazing. Trying to get into the head of someone who is like that is interesting. But yeah, so it's a psychological thriller, and both Adam and I are doing 50-50 of the writing. We're doing it a little bit differently to other books, so we're both taking on an individual character each, and he's the goodie and I'm the baddie, which is awesome. So so we're in the process of collaborating that together at the moment. I have an arm at the door. I do apologize. 1 second.
Somebody wants to say hello.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Our fans online. He's just asked if we're talking about villains. Sorry. We have a fan who watches us as well every week. Oh yeah. See, look, he's on the marketing team.
Yay!
Awesome.
As well, yeah. Thanks, sir.
Oh, my son loves villains, and then you're going to bring up some.
Yeah, I will.
This stuff.
Yeah, I will.
I'm sure.
Like a master villain would.
Nice.
As you can probably tell, my son absolutely loves villains. He always has done. So he will, if he watches any movie or any TV show, he's always gunning for the villain to win, and he always gets disappointed.
I love his weekly cameos that he started doing, by the way.
They're not bad.
That's perfect.
You're watching me on your phone.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Villain.
Like a villain would. Oh my god, look at my little stalker.
I love that. That is so cool.
Like a villain. Oh my goodness. Right, so yeah, welcome to the villainhood. I completely lost track of what I was saying now. Yeah, so that is something that Adam and I are working on together. It's an interesting process because we both got very different ideas about where we're kind of heading with our characters, in the sense of character growth and development, and how they kind of meet and work together. Yeah. So it's very much kind of like a weaving process rather than a sort of sit down and write as we go along. It's a very interesting process.
It's been very organic. Yeah. We've discussed a lot. We've researched a lot, and then each of us have had moments of inspiration where we've spent a little time writing and having moments where it sort of came out and it's starting to come together. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and I'm also, I'd be more than open to working with other people for collaborations as well if they're interested. So, so hit me up if you are. Okay, so. Shall we invite? Before we invite people on, shall we quickly tell them about some of the other stuff that we've got coming up?
Certainly.
Adam, as you put it so eloquently, to do with the competition, did you want to say a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. So yes, we have a writing short story and poetry competition where we have a limit of 1,000 words. We have 3 items that we want featured in every submission, and this is our first of the writing competition, so we are going to have more, but right now the submission time is open. We are just openly accepting submissions. We initially had a date on trying to have this done really quickly, and we've decided just to let it be more organic, as I just said. But so the 3 things that every piece of writing needs to have is a magnifying glass, a wolf, and the rings of Saturn, as pictured here. So there's a magnifying glass sort of in the middle of that image, the wolf obviously down at the bottom, and the rings of Saturn is the background. Those are the 3 things that we want featured, and we want to celebrate your creativity. We want you to write something that's unique and amazing, and those 3 things don't have to be specific. It can be a wolf, it can be a magnifying glass, and you can be talking about the rings of Saturn. Or, as I have mentioned before, be creative, and maybe it's 3 drinks on a cocktail menu. Maybe it's references in a spaceship in a sci-fi epic that you're writing. And again, keep it under 1,000 words and just share your creativity with us. There's a $10 entry fee, which is going to help the whole process along. The winners of the competition are going to be published. We're going to have a compilation volume where all the winners in the competition will be published together, and then we're going to sell the volume, and 15% of the sales of the proceeds are going to go to the Trevor Project, which is a non-project suicide prevention, particularly for the LGBTQ youth, especially in homeless communities, and it's a really awesome project. So we're excited to be supporting them, and so that's what the competition is all about. So 1,000 words, short story, poetry, a wolf, a magnifying glass, and the outer rings of Saturn in your creative presentation for us. Yay, we're excited.
We certainly are. So I've put the email address at the bottom there, and the PayPal QR code to send the $10 entry fee was on the screen as well. So you could just do that, and the $10 is just to kind of cover time for the judges to have an opportunity to actually take time out of their day to be able to read the entries, as well as any sort of other admin costs. But there are other competitions that I've seen that cost significantly more than that. So you know, we've tried to keep it as reasonable as we possibly can. Okay. Now then, we had a couple of other very exciting things coming up as well, haven't we? Reese, would you like to tell us a little bit about our After Dark that we're doing, our more grown-up version of this show?
Oh, yes. Sunday. Let me give you the actual date because I cannot remember the date off the top of my head. Sunday, February. This going to be on the 19th this time, right? Is that right? February 19th. We are doing Book Slam Extra, Book Slam After Dark. And of course, you get a chance to see us do our thing. We get a chance to talk about different topics that are out and about over the around the world. Also, we get a chance to discuss wine tasting and all kinds of other little tidbits that we normally talk about when we're not live. So definitely got to check that out. Those are going to actually be recorded, but check those out for sure right here on YouTube on the Book Slam.
Absolutely. And we've done one and that was so super fun. I really enjoyed that. So we're planning on doing that once a month. And we've also started doing Book Slam Extra as a sort of a normal Book Slam like we do on the Thursdays, but also once a month on a Sunday too, because obviously not everyone's able to make this one because of work commitments, etc. So we're trying to accommodate as much as we can people who would like to be on but can't come on during the week. So again, if you would like to join us on the Book Slam, either on a weekday or on the Sunday, or if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the Book Slam After Dark, then again, join us and make comments in the comment section on the YouTube, or email one of us. You can also follow us on our social media pages, which are actually in the description below in the YouTube video. Okay, let's head on to the really cool bit of the show, which is where we get our lovely guests to attend. So I can see Qualia here now. They've been on before, so I'm going to invite Qualia first. But the other one, they haven't got their camera on yet, so I'm going to invite them first. So welcome. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. How about yourself?
It's so cool to see you again.
Oh, it's so cool to see you. Thanks for
How
having
is your
me on. It's lovely to.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. It was an absolute pleasure having you on before. So, and we always, extend the welcome to authors who, enjoy their time with us and invite them back on. Because it's really cool being able to, deepen the conversations that we have, and sometimes we end up talking about things that are extended, shall we say, across several shows. So it's quite nice to be able to, to invite people on who've been on before. And we're just a nice welcoming bunch. So, Adam, would you like to introduce Qualia again for us, please?
Sure, yeah. Qualia, welcome. You are a writer of not only science fiction and short stories, but you've also got a novel. Is that correct? That's more like fantasy. Am I remembering the details right?
Yes. Oh, I just
tell us
got.
more.
Can I show you? I just got the
Yes.
cover proof back from the printer.
Oh my God,
Wow,
that is so
that's
beautiful.
I love
I'm
that.
excited about that. That's a weird. I don't even know what to call it really. It's middle grade, so it's like ideally 12 to 16 and up. But it's kind of there's fantasy, there's magic, but it also takes place in a kind of northern realm, kind of based on a lot of old Norse legends that I was reading. And it takes place in kind of a steampunk world, so there's some steampunk elements, and then it also takes place, that world takes place as one of the 100 worlds in a multiversal fantasy magic-based empire, so there's a bit of sci-fi multiverse with some steampunk and some fantasy magic, and with a little bit of queer sprinkling in there.
So not complex at all, huh? Really, really basic storytelling here.
Yeah, well, I really love the idea of the books that I was really interested in as a kid were books that could be read by kids, but were also not afraid of discussing adult themes to children. So a lot of talk about environmentalism and about chosen family and standing up for what you believe in and trying to find yourself in a world that kind of goes by really fast. And so learning to have that integrity to follow your own path. It's kind of what that story is about. So I'm excited about that. I was going to publish it last week, but then I realized that I had only ever queried it to agents before. So I'm giving myself the benefit of the doubt, and I've sent it to a bunch of publishers. So if no takers, then I will probably self-publish it sometime in the near future.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I also have a
tell us one more.
book that I have a short story that just came out on the 1st, which is exciting for me because it's the final of 6 short stories that formed a short story series that I'm calling The Shadows of Athlon. And that's the first part of that is what I read last time I was on. So I'm really excited about that. I have my first ever live book release event, March 25th here in Canada, where I'm going to read The Final Kiss again. I'm going to do some book signings and celebrate having these 6 stories done. So I'm self-publishing a collection of them. That'll be an ebook, paperback, and hardcover that I'm super excited about because it's just kind of the start of this huge collection of stories that have all been bubbling in my head. So the stories of my favorite android heroine will continue, but this collection of 6 is done now, so I'm excited to just see it done and on the shelf and moving on to new things.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, last time I came on, I was actually blown away because of how, pardon me, how many people seem to come out of the woodwork and support the first chapter, The Final Kiss. Since I published it in late September, I was getting maybe like 5 to 10, maybe 20 downloads of that story a month. And then in January, it was wild. I had over 500 downloads of that story in January.
Oh, wow.
And it was unbelievable. And then on Google Play, of all places, so I had no idea where the traffic came to, how it came to find it on Google Play, but I was super excited about it. And so to celebrate just the success of part 1, I'm giving away part 2 all this month. Just to keep trying to gain some interest in the story and just as a big thank you to the people who've supported part 1, especially with ebooks, I try to charge, no more than $1 for most of the ebooks just because it's just, you're not actually getting a product with an ebook, and I like to make it more accessible. So I often have free ebooks, like promotions and giveaways and stuff like that. And I'm just excited to have this collection done. And I have a follow-up novel that I wrote a few months ago called Electron Spin, which takes place just after this series. So I'm excited to self-publish that, I think, in May. So that'll be exciting.
That's amazing.
Lots of big plans. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really exciting. You have been a busy bee. Now we've had a request, so I'm just going to put this on the screen. Hang on a second. So this is this is one of our fans. So can you, in the private chat that we have, put your links to your books, and I will actually post them on the actual public comments bit so that they're out there. And then it means that we're not interrupting the flow of conversation then between sort of oh, what's yours or what's yours kind of thing. So so thank you very much for the reminder, Doc. I really appreciate that. Okay.
Shall we bring on Elise?
Absolutely. I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation.
Yeah, no. Yeah, of course.
So Elise, I'm just going to bring you on now if you're ready. I did say to them.
Here we go. Hi.
Hi. Teeny tiny picture.
That's okay. That's okay.
Hi.
Hi, that's okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Go on.
Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your writing?
Oh, good Lord. Words and words. So my pen name is Elise. My actual name is more French. I'm not French, but my actual name is more French. Let's see. I'm going with the pen name for several reasons. First is like privacy. Second, I work in a very unique job, and I don't want the two to get connected and then bad things will happen. It wouldn't be good publicity for my job, which I actually love.
That's
That's
totally
why
wonderful. We've had other guests on with very similar situations. That's totally perfect. We're glad you're here.
And then there's also like the family stuff. Bad things will happen to my family too if I have that connected. Not my immediate family, more like my extended family. But I would say in terms of writing, I've been writing since I learned how to write stories, crafting all sorts of things. My mother will always bug me to get something published someday. When she says publish, she's looking more at the route of traditional publishing. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that and put my words out in the universe to be judged and everything because, imposter syndrome. But then I would say I've been writing in different spaces online, but 2019 was when the button finally clicked. Like, I think I can actually do this. I was still weighing the options of going traditional or self. But it's like, I really want to do this. So I was knowing me and my very analytical brain, the pros and the cons and the goods and the bads and all that thing. And my spreadsheets had spreadsheets because I'm extra like that. But writing is actually where I let my creative juices just flow and not as much control in there, which is really strange to think about. But 2022 was when I finally pulled the plug on it and said, I'm going to do this, and went through the hassle of establishing things and doing it. It's such a nightmare, but that's when I actually got the ball actually rolling on it. And the first book was self-published in December 2022. The second one came out last week, and I'm going to take forever to write the next 3 because my brain is not going to work that fast.
Wow, well, congratulations.
And I would say it took me several tries and several niches and several genres. And my editor was like, you need to stick to one for now and just go with it. And I settled on romance. I like fantasy a lot, and I know I'm going to go there someday, but for now, I'm just going to narrow it down. And my writing tends to lean towards dark, so I'm going to own it. I'm a dark romance writer. I'm going with that.
Excellent.
And I would say my writing process is a little bit, it's a mixture of some structure and some letting it flow. So I'm a plotter pantser combo, as in I write an outline, a very detailed outline, like 3,000 to 5,000 word outline. It's very like this needs to happen then and happen then and happen then, but the words don't actually happen exactly in that order. Because if a character says, I want to do this now, and I'm trying to force it by writing something else, that's where the block happens. So I don't write in order, and I tend to let the words flow. And I think I put the disclaimer in a lot of things, but it's trigger warnings galore. So it's, I don't know, if I write a list of problematic things I intentionally want to put in the book, because that's what real life is. It's imperfect and it's flawed, and that's how it is. And then I decide how I'm going to phrase it. So when you're reading it, you're like, this is problematic, but this is what actually happens. And this is how we walk through it. And this is how we deal with it. And this is the outcome we come at the end of it. And I guess that's kind of how my writing goes.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on your 2 books that are already out. And we're so excited to have you here today with us. This is great.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to ask. Sorry, Lisa.
I'll put the links in the chat.
Yes, please do.
Yes, put them in chat, and I'll put them up on the main chat for everyone, because it goes to both. Well, it goes to Twitter, Facebook, and also to YouTube, which is quite cool. What was I going to ask? Oh yes, villains.
Villains.
Villains. Oh, we started off with billions. Villains.
I'll say something, because when your son came in and you said that he's always rooting for the bad guys. When I first saw the Avengers Infinity War and Thanos snaps his fingers and wipes out half the universe, I fucking cheered. I cheered. I know everybody else was upset, but I cheered.
Why?
I feel really sorry for him, because I think that he's really misguided. You know, I think, the way that he looks after Gamora and his sister, he's abusive for sure. And he's a megalom.
Maniac.
Thank you. And he's very narcissistic and everything. So he's not a great person. But I feel sorry for him, because I really think that he thinks that he is doing the right thing. And so when he finds out that he's actually lost, I'm like, oh, is that bad? I feel sorry for him.
The complexity makes a good villain. To me, a villain is not always evil. That the best villains, I should say, are not always evil. The same way that good characters have to have struggles. They can't just. I mean, I understand where the character Superman comes from, but I get real bored with like the god tier character who can do no wrong. Like, I get bored with that. That's just. I want my characters to have layers, like an onion. I want them to stink sometimes. Bring it on.
The love-hate relationship balance.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, we say villains and we probably have spring to mind, like the typical the person who's either really ugly, or the monster, or the person who's all dressed in black, or, someone who's got crazy powers, things like that. But actually the villain could be something, you could be your own villain. So the villain could be something very simple, like the character's own flaws. Or it could be the character's own perception of the world, or it could be the world itself. So the villain is quite a broad spectrum of things. And I'm interested to hear what you guys actually have as your villains, in your stories, because without strong villains, we don't have good characters. And the villain really is the hero of the story at the end of the day. Oh, we want the hero to win, but if we don't have the villain, our hero is basically just a person who actually is a bit psychotic. So yeah, I mean, what have you got in your stories that you've got as villains?
I really love the idea.
Yeah. Go ahead, Qualia.
I really love the idea of like unconventional villains. A lot of what Adam said resonated with me too. I like villains to have layers as well. But it's interesting as well. Yeah, I think in the last 5-10 years, we've become kind of obsessed with the idea of villains having too many layers, and then it's like it inevitably means every villain has to have a redemption arc, and I don't want to see always have villains have a redemption arc.
Yep.
Thanos is a great example. Like, I hope there's no redeeming that character. He killed off half the life in the universe.
No.
And it was like, I think that's one of the things that constantly pulled me out of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, was this idea that Kylo Ren is going to be redeemed, and basically was redeemed. But I mean, there's so many Catholic underpinnings in most of Star Wars, where it's like, oh, he just forgave himself and then went back to the light side, and everybody's cool with it now. It's like, they killed billions of people.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea of unconventional villains, and I think that, like, for me, it would have been so much more powerful in Star Wars had he just doubled down and gone down the villain arc. So in my recent series, The Shadows of Athlon, there actually really is no conventional villain at all. The villain is not even really a villain, the antagonist, I guess I should say. The antagonist is time. And character of Esmeralda is kind of beaten around by time because of relativity in the universe, and time keeps moving by without her, and basically robbing her of her present. You know, there are bad things that happen. The human race destroyed her world and all of her people, but there's no conceptual villain behind that other than the, you know, faceless, you know, army of the human race that destroyed her world. But a lot of the concepts that she fights against and a lot of the action, I guess you could say, is driven by her reaction to time and the universe moving on without her. And in many ways, she becomes her own villain a lot of the time as she is constantly kind of deciding or seeking ways to exist in the universe when everything that she cared about is long gone. So she kind of becomes her own antagonist. And I wanted to play with that a little bit. And so, like, there's things that she does, starting even in Risorgimento, which is the second of the 6 pieces, where she does some pretty nasty things. But being an android, she doesn't see things the way that you and I would see them. And so it plays with that a little bit too, as different characters coming from different backgrounds would have slightly different morality depending on their culture and where they're from and their lived experiences. So I like playing with that as well. I do love sometimes a just ridiculously cheesy villain for no reason. They're evil. They're evil. You could maybe give some layers to it, but they're just a piece of garbage, and they're just out to make everything crap because they're so miserable. All they want is to make everything else crap.
I call those characters agents of chaos.
Totally.
Basically.
They don't really have a purpose except to mess with stuff. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the like Batman quote of some men just want to watch the world burn. I love a good villain that just wants to burn everything.
That's awesome.
Because I think that having a more two-dimensional villain works in stories where you're writing the hero to be more three-dimensional. The hero has so many different layers and is almost an anti-hero villain in some respects on their own. So you don't want both the main characters to have all these different competing layers, because then you might not know who to root for.
Well, to me, I feel like Professor X and Magneto are a good combo. You've got one character who everybody views as the bad guy, but he was a fucking kid in Auschwitz. He lived the most horrible childhood ever. So he's kind of messed up. Like we can also get that versus Professor X, who had this like idyllic, wonderful childhood, but he's also a sociopath and like wants to control everyone. And like you've got two different sides and they have their own like issues. But I feel like that's it. And they sort of balance each other. And I think those two characters sort of work together as not quite pure villain and not quite pure, you know, hero. They both have major flaws and reasons for why they feel the way they do.
I love the Professor X Magneto relationship.
Yes.
Even in the middle of these fierce battles, these, you know, quote heterosexual guys have so much love for each other, and it like pains them to fight, and they fight anyway because of their larger ideals about the world. But I love that is when the X-Men are written well, it's always, no matter which one of them wins a given battle, they both suffer because they don't want to be fighting each other.
It's a little bit like
Magneto come and work at the school at one point. Like he had him on staff. I mean, that's how close they are to each other. Sorry, Jules, were you going to say something?
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, it's a little bit like the relationship between Sauron and Gandalf, where you have these two extremely old wizards who are, you know, who have this teacher-student relationship because of the way that the order works. And you've got the teacher who betrays the student, and the hurt that Gandalf experiences when he feels the betrayal of Sauron, and then the torment and the mental gymnastics he has to go through to kind of go, it's not actually him, it's Saruman who's doing the control. And yet at the same time, he realizes that Sauron's too far gone to be able to save. And so you end up with this kind of strange battle going on between them, but most of it is done psychologically as opposed to like actually physical fighting.
Mm.
And yeah, and the way the Lord of the Rings works with Saruman, and you've got this evil overlord, and the orcs who are based off the Germans from World War One and the war that went on then. You've got this really heavy undercurrent of evil seeping into everything. And then you've got these characters that just seem to be able to
Resist it.
just about manage to survive. Yeah. And really, the hero at the end of the day is Sam, because
Mhm.
without Sam, the whole thing would have been lost. So, yeah, it's a very interesting kind of interaction going on between those two characters. I'm just drawing the comparison between them and obviously the X-Men, because there are very big similarities going on there. So
And throw Gollum into the mix and his
yeah,
twisted story. Yeah, the whole thing is so well written. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
There's
Gollum's almost
there's
an anti-hero at some points, isn't he? Where he
Yeah.
does actually save Frodo and Sam at one point. But then and you're kind of almost rooting for him, and then when you feel his backstory, it's like you understand where he's coming from, but then at the same time, you actually don't want him to survive because he has no life. He's just the puppet. Yeah, it's very interesting. What about your book?
I actually have a line in here that says "fuck his backstory" for certain characters. That's just what? Seriously, that's how I feel. Fuck his redemption arc. Fuck his backstory. There's a few characters that once they've gone bad enough, there's no redeeming them. It's not even. Yeah.
I'm in the
That's
process
the
of writing
interesting thing.
Sorry, go on.
That's the interesting thing between, like you said, the Magneto and Professor X relationship and the bringing in the Gandalf and Saruman arc is that it's not the traditional hero villain debate of like Superman and Lex Luthor. I'm gonna bring him to justice. You know, uh, Professor X doesn't want to arrest Magneto. He doesn't want to send him to prison. And same with uh, Gandalf and Saruman. Even after Saruman betrays Gandalf and raises his own orc army and causes thousands of humans to die, he just wants him to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Gandalf wants Saruman to stop the madness and be his friend again. He doesn't want to give up on him. It reminds me of Doctor Who and the Master a lot of the time, where he just wants him to stop, especially like the David Tennant arc, where it's the two of them are the only Gallifreyans left, and he just wants to stop. He's willing to stop being a hero. He's willing to leave everything, and he just wants this person to stop so they can have that back. And I think Lord of the Rings really does a great job of making realistically the industrialization of the world is the villain in Lord of the Rings, and that's what pulls Saruman down initially, is this belief that everything has to be progress, and this distaste for the natural world and order, and physically made constructed things are the only way forward. And so Sauron and the Ring, is also a great example of the villain, and not just a piece of jewelry. It's like these ideas are the villains, and that's one of the things I like, is like when an idea can be the villain, and those ideas can tear people apart. That line in the sand where now two people that love each other have to fight because neither one of them's willing to budge on their idea. And that's, I think, what turns a villain into that villain that sees themselves as the hero of the story.
Right, which is also an interesting twist in villain tale and villain arcs is when they think of themselves as the hero. Yeah, that's always good. Well, so sorry. Go on. No. Go on.
I'll tell you something that you guys could probably actually help me a little bit with is I'm actually in the process of writing a scene between a pretty evil, twisted man who my protagonist nicknames the Tormentor, because she doesn't actually know his name. But he abused her when she was held captive. and caused her to have PTSD and anxiety and depression and things. And she's now face to face with him, and he's literally tormenting her. And he thinks he's right, and he thinks that he's doing the right thing, and she's the one that got away, and he's almost obsessed with this person who's managed to somehow escape his clutches. And because she's the first person to have done that, she intrigues him, and she just thinks he's a fucking maniac. Like she doesn't want to have anything to do with him. Yeah, she wants to kill him, but she can't. And I'm torn between writing it in the sense that he thinks he's the hero in his in his own story, and that he's doing the right thing, and he's working to better the world and all this kind of stuff, all this nonsense, or whether he just enjoys being bloody awful. I don't know.
I might be biased in that, and I kind of like where your train of thought is going. I spend a lot more time crafting my villains than I do crafting my good guys. It seems weird, but
no.
I always want to understand the bad guy's motivation. They don't have to be redeemable. That one's like, it's usually a toss-up if there's redemption for them or not. But doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, or doing the right things for the wrong reasons, or being dealt some really shitty cards, and you're like, this is what I got, this is what I'm going to work with, I'm going to roll with it. That's usually what I'm thinking when I'm crafting a villain. And it's like, if you have someone who's like, I'm just going to torture someone for the sake of torturing them, or I'm going to torture them because they intrigue me, hey. It doesn't necessarily make them a bad guy in the traditional sense. At least that's how I'm looking at it. But I don't know.
Why don't you tell us about some of your villains in your book, at least?
Lord. I did say trigger warnings galore. My current series that I'm working on is called Sin and Sinuosity. Sin as in, it's just a play on what the society considers to be bad or good. And sinuosity is just the bends and the twists and all the things that it just gives me the leeway to throw whatever it is I want to throw in there.
Yeah.
And generational trauma has always been something that has interested me, and it always shows up in all of my writing. And I know people really hate me for this because I'm spelling it out. I took something as beautiful as childbirth. Well, not childbirth, but like the next generation. So like fertility and all of that. And I took human slavery and I put them together. I'm like, I'm going to see what happens with it. Basically, it's a very rich family that they can do whatever they want. And they pay for fertility treatments for this infertile couple. And their trade-off was like, you're going to give us your kids. As in, your kids are going to marry our kids. That's their deal. But in the public, it's lauded as this very beautiful thing. As you know, I'm doing a very beautiful thing for this infertile couple. I'm going to help them have children and realize their dream of parenthood. That's what everybody sees, and that's what everybody praises. But they don't know that the deal was that they want those children. So they own the children. But they don't own them in the traditional sense, but they own them. As in, there's no way to really escape their clutches. And the obvious bad guys is the people who signed that initial contract. But when the story is said, they're dead and gone. So are the parents who signed said contract, but you still have these children who are dealing with the aftermath of it. So my obvious villains are the grandparents who signed this contract in the first place. And that's what I just tout throughout the whole thing. But we have an actual villain who's very much alive and pulling the strings in the background. And I'm leaving it intentionally vague. And I know my beta reader was not a fan of that. And my art team, my peer read some of the comments and just like, they're really pointing at this. And even my editor was like, you really need to make this clear from the get-go. I'm like, no, not really. Because I will spell it out eventually, but I'm going to spell it out in the story of the person who was really the most pissed off by it. Because it makes sense that that's her comeuppance. It's not her problem to deal with per se, but it's her problem to resolve.
And I like that it
And
sounds
the
like.
villain,
Go
and
ahead.
by villain is, well, I'm not gonna spoil it as to who the villain is, but the villain is basically somebody who hires somebody else to break off her son's wedding. And I leave it intentionally vague as to who it was throughout. Even in the second book, I just left it vague. So, and now I have to write a backstory as to how she got to the way she is, and I really, really am not having fun with it.
Oh no.
Because I know why she is the way she is,
Uh-huh.
and I'm spending a lot of time crafting her the way she is. And I kind of understand her motivations because in many ways I identify with her. So I'm not liking it at all. But do it. Make him villain the good guy. Well, encourage everybody to do that, even though I don't like it. As a writer, it's painful.
I don't know. I don't think I can make the tormentor a good guy. I really don't. I'm listening to you, and I really feel what you're saying, and I'm thinking there's possibly one or two I could turn good, but I mean, like he literally abused her for months. There's no way. If I made him a good person, no.
I mean, she could claw his eyes out and call it a day.
Pardon?
Oh,
right, yeah,
Like, eyes claw out in the most gruesome way ever.
I would quite happily kill him off in a very gruesome way, for sure. But
I
yeah.
like the comparison between you two. At least you're talking about villains who are long dead, and Jules is talking about like face-to-face confrontation with the villain. That's wild. That's difference is a spectrum, you know.
Well, I want him to be someone that my protagonist is like, he is the main person for her throughout, who she is fighting against, and there's bits that he reveals to her in this book 3, that happened in book 2 that she didn't know about, but she only saw the after effect of, and so they didn't know who or what caused this problem, and it kind of got left because there's so many other things that happened, and then in book 3 it reveals itself a little bit, and then she starts questioning herself, and so he is going to be a long-running antagonist against her. But like a lot of things, I want him to be a low-level antagonist. So although for her he's significantly bad, he's a really, really bad guy.
But he's not like a major general in an army?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. He just thinks he is. No, there is a much more powerful enemy en route. Yeah. Which, yeah.
Does dealing with the tormentor help her prepare for the major enemy that's coming? Is that part of the story, or is it two unrelated separate things?
Two unrelated separate things. He's basically like he's just been left behind to sort of like observe and just watch the land whilst the real enemy is making tracks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, but it's more of a learning experience for her. So the interaction, she learns a lot more about what's been going on, and she finds that he has been stalking her and shadowing her, and knows a lot more about her than she would like. Yeah.
I mean, does he do anything good for her? Like, I don't know, save her life at some point that she doesn't realize it? Obliterate a few enemies who are seeking to do her harm as only I can harm you and nobody else kind of move?
He wants to possess her. He wants to own her.
I like those.
I mean,
that's
there's
a
that.
good thought process,
right?
There's that part, yes, but the good stuff. Let's throw some good stuff in there.
He sexually assaulted her for months. I don't think there is. No. I can't. I think that if I start making good parts on him, I don't want him to be truly evil. He's a complex character. He's a product of the environment that he's in. There's a history as to why he's bad. So there is background there for him.
Okay.
But he's not redeemable. He's not. I just don't think I could do that. I don't think I could bring myself to do that. To make him a redeemable character. I do see what you're saying about some characters can be redeemed and brought back from the darkest places, but not sex offenders.
No. I mean, I have a very
There's a
special
special
type of
place in hell
treatment
for
for people like
that.
that.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
There
they
is a
don't even have to get to hell. You can just take care of them on earth.
This is true.
You can start here. There's eye gouging. There's tossing them through wood chippers.
yeah.
Removing
There's like
body
carving out their
parts.
entrails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keeping
Well,
them
there's
alive while
monsters.
you do it. Oh
Yeah.
God, my mind is so dark. I'm sorry.
That's proper talk. Yeah, there are lots of very, 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 very bad monsters. I say bad, they're not naughty bad, they're just like scary bad monsters in the land that are as big as dinosaurs and fly, and some of them don't, and yeah, some of them are in the sea. And so, yeah, there are lots of ways he could be taken out. Oh, what are you showing us, Adam?
Fuck their redemption. Right there. Fuck their redemption.
He found the
Right there.
location.
Right there. You don't need to save him, Jules. You don't need to.
I love it.
That sounds like a highlighted line that's going up on his page tonight.
That's a
It's
good
going to be
idea.
that section. He's going to have a screenshot of that section with that one line.
I honestly, I mean, I do completely agree with you in the sense that having a character who's bad, that you can have a redemption arc. Like, who is it? I'm just looking for one line off my head. I cannot think of one. Oh, Megamind. That was in the chat a short while ago. Megamind. He had a good redemption arc, and he was a bit I can never say the word.
Megalomaniacal?
That's the one. Thank
Is that
you.
it?
Yeah, that's the one. And he was like that, but he had a really good redemption arc. But he was actually a decent guy underneath. He hadn't actually imprisoned children and abused them for months. So it's.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Yep.
So interesting. That makes me think of one of the things that I like to see from that is it made me think of two things. One is the interesting dynamic when you have a villain redemption arc, or the hero sets out to create a villain redemption arc and it ends up working, but then something happens when the villain goes back to being a villain.
Mhm.
Now they've had this like brief period of being friends or seeing eye to eye, and then the villain goes the other way, or the hero villain redemption arc now makes the villain
Falls.
twice as bad. And
Yeah.
then the other thing I was just thinking of about that stuff is it reminded me there's a character in an upcoming book of mine where it's a theme you don't see it often in books and movies, but I love it when it happens, is when the villain wins at the end, but you realize the villain was right.
That's an
So he was
interesting.
a complete piece of shit the whole way through and was evil. Absolutely, nobody's going to say he wasn't evil, but he was still right. And so one of my favorite examples of that is in the graphic novel Watchmen by Alan Moore. The central villain behind all the plotting and scheming at the end, nukes New York City. And no spoiler alert because Watchmen came out in the 80s. So if you haven't read the book yet, you're not going to. In the comic book, the movie's a different story, and don't get me ranting about the movie, but in the comic book, the villain goes through this whole extremely insane evil villain arc, but he also happens to be the smartest man on Earth. And so he does all these evil things for the greater good. And he is actually correct, is that he's done all these terrible things, ends up nuking New York City and blaming it on aliens, and the entire human race bands together and creates a utopia because of that, because they believe they're not alone in the universe. And so he does actually achieve world peace through, murdering millions of people and doing all this villainy stuff. So I love that. I wish I talked about this with some people a while back. It would have been amazing in Infinity War if Infinity War had started with the whole human race having achieved utopia, because suddenly we have half the humans to suddenly look after. And it would have been such a cool dynamic with the Avengers wanting to like reverse it, but also knowing that
would
live in a utopia now. So you could
utopia.
ruin the utopia to bring everybody back. It would have been you could spend a whole movie just talking about that. Right?
That's a cool
and
idea.
That would have been like the heroes could have had all kinds of different opinions on it and like correcting this evil that was done, but the evil brought about all this good.
That would have been very complex. Yeah. Well, should we do some reading? Are we at that point? Let's do
Yeah,
it. Let's do that.
yeah. Elise or Qualia, who would like to go first? Qualia, would you like to read first? And you know the drill
Sure.
now.
Yeah, I could do that.
Awesome. So I'll take everyone off the screen. You just introduce yourself in your book again, and yeah, and you take it away. So hang on a second.
Sure.
Well,
Hello, lovely people. It's weird to just see myself. I'm just going to picture Adam's pretty face. In the cold depths of space, the helium cloud of the Maka Nebula was like a deep blue ocean, quiet and serene. The yellow lights of her ship's ion jets were long gone now, and she was alone, adrift, and without hope. Esmeralda knew that before long, in the grand scheme of the universe, her power reserves would run out, and she would be nothing but another piece of space junk floating forever. Placing her doom aside, she thought about how, in another lifetime, Kai Althea would have loved the beauty of the Maka Nebula. In the upper right-hand corner of her vision, ionized nitrogen infused a spiral of deep red into the blue of the cloud. It reminded Esmeralda of a painting that had once hung on the walls of the Winter Palace's ballroom back on Athlon. That beautiful painting was nothing but ashes now, along with everything else on the planet of her creation. In her search for the one thing that might possibly reunite her with Kai Althea, Esmeralda had put her faith in the wrong person. Now her ship had been stolen, and its thieves had left her for dead in this remote nebula. With no external propulsion system, even if she wasn't pulled into the gravity well of a nearby planet or star, she was far enough away from the nearest inhabited system that the fire within her nuclear heart would be extinguished long before she reached anywhere where that could help her. Suddenly, a streak of yellow burned through her vision, so reminiscent of that spring night a half a century earlier when the Herald's comet burned for 3 days and nights over the skies of Athlon. Esmeralda wished that she could miraculously invert her entire being and somehow pull herself directly into her memories, anything to be beside her princess one more time. Come on, Esme, we're going to miss the comet, laughed Kai Althea, pulling her along through the crowded streets of the capital city. Esmeralda 09B's circuits were lit up as they'd never been, despite the fireworks from the springtime celebrations and the once-in-a-lifetime comet hanging up in the heavens. Her eyes could only focus on Kai Althea. There had been a time when she was newly created that she hadn't learned to laugh. Now it had been years since a day had passed without laughter. Seeing their princess, the crowd opened before them, and Kai Althea pulled Esmeralda through the street and to an observation platform that extended out onto the still surface of the lake. The pool of eternity, as the lake was called, was gleaming under the night sky as they held each other close, moments before the comet came bursting into view. It was a rogue, destined to put on a spectacular show for the next 3 nights before disappearing forever when it left the Athlonian system. Esmeralda was brought out of her memories as the yellow streak she had seen a moment earlier came further into view. It was the ship, its deceleration engines burning brightly against the backdrop of the nebula. Even for an android, the odds of a ship randomly happening upon her were too minuscule to calculate. As the ship approached, Esmeralda's optic sensors telescoped in on the nameplate to see that it was called the Risorgimento. There was nothing she could do to avoid them, even if she wanted to. The ship didn't appear to be a scavenger or a warship, and didn't bear any of the colors of her sworn enemies, the human galactic empire, destroyers of the Athlonian Imperium. Esmeralda felt their ion beams lock on as the charge reversed, she began to feel it pulling her towards their ship. They hauled her aboard, and within minutes she was lying on the cold metal deck, surrounded by an ununiformed guard of no specific cultural group that Esmeralda could identify. 3 of them were humans, with pistols out but lowered, all looking almost like identical twins. 2 were unarmed Gwyllian females, and the short, squat one aiming the energy rifle at her was a Xanthite male. I hope you don't mind our intrusion, announced the lead human, stepping forward from the group with a commanding swagger. We saw you floating out there and thought you might like a lift. I'm indebted to you, said Esmeralda, remaining on the floor and assessing the threat of the human approaching her. He must have sensed her apprehension because he signaled the others to back off with a hand. We're not going to harm you. We're not military. I hope you're not planning on bringing us any trouble either. No, as I said, I'm indebted to you for the rescue. All right, then, great. Welcome aboard the Risorgimento. I'm Captain Barrett, and these are my troublemakers. What's your name? I'm Esmeralda 09B. My ship was stolen from me, and I was left here in this nebula to die. Fascinating, exclaimed one of the Gwillians. An Athelonian android of some make I've never seen before. Modified assassin class, perhaps? Top of the line either way. She'd probably fetch a high price at Pox Station, especially since her kind are all but gone now. Barrett shook his head and waved the suggestion away. Hey now, Tegan, I just finished telling this young lady we're not going to harm her, and I meant it. He turned to Esmeralda and leaned closer. Are you, though? Assassin class, I mean? She rose to her feet and looked Barrett in the eyes. My past is my own, and I do not wish to discuss it. Whoever I was, that person died with Athlon. Now I exist for a single purpose, which has become two. And you mind telling me what those are? My primary purpose is to locate the stellar phenomenon known as the Calliope door. My second purpose is to take back my ship so that I can return to my quest. Calliope door? Asked Barrett. Never heard of it. We might be able to help you win back your ship, though, if you got anything to help make it worth our while. I have a wealth of information in my ship's memory core, star charts, as well as the complete technical library of the Athelonian High Command that I saved from the ruins of my homeworld. The little Xanthite shuffled over to Barrett with a grin on his face. Barrett, we could make some wicked modifications to the Riso if we had access to the Athelonian specs. Before the war, they were the most advanced race in the arm. Barrett rubbed at his stubble. How many did it take to steal your ship from you? I'd wager you can handle yourself in a fight. There are only 3 Jarveen on board and minimally armed. I'm afraid the fault was my own. I was too trusting, it seems. All right, Esmeralda 09B, Barrett agreed, clapping his hands from across the cargo bay. You got yourself a deal. We'll help you get your ship back in exchange for your technical data. I don't suppose you have any idea where they're headed. Actually, I'm certain of where they're headed. I'll leave it there for now.
Yay! Are we muted?
That was awesome.
Yay!
Sorry,
Brilliant.
I pressed the wrong button. Sorry.
That was, yeah.
That was a marvelous read.
Good.
First couple of pages of the Risorgimento, which is now free on most platforms where you could get ebooks if you want to check out the rest.
Yay!
That's awesome. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the story and sort of, what place that was in the story and how it kind of fits in?
So that was the opening couple of pages. It's interesting because Risorgimento is technically a prequel to The Final Kiss, the one that I read last time, where she had already found the Calliope door. So this one is taking place years before that, where she's still fresh relatively from the destruction of Athlon and still searching for the Calliope door. So she's on a quest throughout the cosmos to find clues as to where it might be so she can eventually track it down. This being book 2, all the books now follow a kind of trajectory. Book 2 is the prequel to book 1, and book 3 is a sequel to book 1. So book 3 is where it gets really interesting because it takes place after she's gone through the Calliope door.
I really like the line you said, something she wished she could invert herself and live inside her memories or go inside her memories or something. I loved that line. That was a great turn of phrase, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's my my queer anxiety. I think we've all had those moments where we just wish we could just pull ourselves into our, create the singularity, just invert myself right out of existence so I could just live inside a memory.
I feel you.
I like to play with the idea of memory as well and mortality, and I think mortality itself is one of the themes of a lot of my writing, and it kind of almost can be the villain, especially when a creature like Esmeralda has an almost indefinite lifespan, and the humans and aliens that she interacts with are only here for a very, very finite count of years. I was obsessed with the idea before that, the book, one of the books that I'm proudest about, which is still seeking publication, but if not, eventually will be self-published. It's called The Conceptual Dawn, and it plays with a lot of these themes, and it is about the birth of AI and to prevent a war between humans and AI. The AI create what's called the conceptual dawn, and it's a digital afterlife where human beings can live forever in a digital paradise.
Wow.
And so it changes everything on the world when you can just live forever in this extremely perfect utopia in this digital realm. And then it gets into the like, it's where I went off the deep end with a lot of existentialism and a lot of like big questions. So like, would you leave behind your body and go and live in the digital realm forever? And what does it mean? What does it mean to be human if you don't have a body? If you're just a digital version or your digital being? Would you believe that a digital being is not real? Is it just fake? Is it just code? Or is there something to the idea of digital life forms, energy-based life forms? And then how would that change? How would we fall in love? You know, if there's no chemicals, no pheromones, no hormones that initially builds our attraction to someone, how do you fall in love when you're digital beings? And how would an AI love versus how would a human love? And that mortality piece kind of comes into those books quite a lot. I've got the first two books of that trilogy already written and seeking publication, so I'm going to be super excited to share those books. I've been working on the Conceptual Dawn longer than I've ever worked on a project before. I've been started writing it in 2017, 2018. I've been working on it ever since. And it's a closely guarded secret of how the Conceptual Dawn will also tie in with the Esmeralda stories eventually. In fact, if you read the third story, Skylark's Fury, which takes place after Risorgimento, there's an Easter egg for the Conceptual Dawn. So it'll
Nice.
almost everything that I've written over the last 5 years will eventually tie in a way that makes sense as I build this mind universe.
That's cool. That's awesome. It does sound very complex, and the interactions between your books with each other sounds very clever and very cool. Elise, would you like to read? Are you ready? Uh-oh.
Oh, Elise. Oh, maybe her sound's gone. So what I might do is remove and then maybe bring her back. Hopefully she'll be back again. I'll send her a message and see if she's
Okay.
she's with us still.
Reese, what kind of villains? Oh, sorry. What kind of villains
okay.
do you have in your books, Reese? What sort of?
That's a good question, because with me writing more realistic fiction, it's more I would say it's partially the individual, and then sometimes it's psychological things that are going on with that particular person. For Trapped, I would say initially most people will probably pick Jasmine as a villain because of how brash she is. But of course, you get a chance to get to know her and find out why she is the way she is. And then when Ty comes into the picture, he's seen as the villain toward the end. So there's different plays on that with the characters and the way they're developed throughout the book. But that's probably the two people I can think of off the top of my head. Or I mean, I guess even Sterling becomes a villain at some point in the book. Although Adam's like, but wait, we need to keep him though.
Yes, please. Yes, please. We think Sterling is very sexy.
But yeah, he does. I mean, he does play his part in the storyline between him and Stephanie. I feel like with him, there's a power dynamic between the two. Well, there's an age gap for one. So that's part of it. It's a power play between their what is the word I'm looking for that I cannot find right now? I can't think of what the word is right now. It's gonna come back to me, so I'll move on from that. But there's different play. You know, there's a lot of play in between that. There's a dom sub relationship between the two of them, but a lot of it is truly Stephanie trying to come into herself and leaning on him. I feel and she's leaning on him for a lot of guidance in certain ways, but she still has to figure things out on her own as well. So yeah, he kind of becomes a villain in her storyline because he takes her on a ride, and it just doesn't. She goes down a rabbit hole throughout the storyline, and at the end, I would say she comes out victorious, kind of, because again, there is a part 2. So part 2, you get a chance to see what's the aftermath of that point. Like for this next book, the plot line is basically what happens the morning after. So each character goes through their scene of, okay, this is how the book ended in 1. So what happened after that point? Now here we are in present day, and we're rolling with that. But yeah, I think that's about it as far as what I can say as far as the villainy in my storyline. It's more it's really more dynamic. I can't even say that Jasmine is a villain with Naomi's character, because Naomi is still in that place of coming of age. So she's literally learning from scratch. Okay, how does this social dynamic work when it comes down to relationships and friendships? Because she's the only kid, she's the only child, and on top of that, she was homeschooled, so she didn't have a lot of interactions with her peers unless it was something that was set up by her parents. So there's a lot of play with that. I mean, can they be their own worst enemies in the particular situations that they put themselves in? I would say Stephanie probably beat herself up enough about it, and so did Anya. So yeah, there's so many different ways to go with that.
And that's true. I think a lot of people don't ever face, in reality, a lot of people don't ever face a real villain. They just have to deal with their own internal struggles and their own villainous voice inside them that's countering all their goodness and whatever. Yeah. So
yeah.
True.
I'm going to bring Elise back on because she's now ready. I think there was an internet issue her end. So welcome back to the stream, Elise.
Yay.
I'm back.
Just a few weeks ago when my internet wasn't working and Adam and Reese, bless them, it was an interesting experience. They did very well carrying. So are you okay to read some of yours now? That'd be awesome to hear.
Yep, I think I'm ready.
I don't know who it is. If you could turn down every I don't know if I can hear feedback on someone's thing. Oh, it's Qualia. Oh no, it's not. It's Adam. It's Adam. Adam, it's not you. Someone's got their thing on. Okay. I can't hear you now. Right. I love it. Both you and Qualia like this.
Everybody's like, let me just mute.
It's none of us. Oh, maybe it's yellow. Just make sure you've only got one device on, otherwise you end up with feedback and it's a bit off-putting when you're trying to read. Okay, so Qualia, how it works, normally we would have someone on the screen on their own reading, but obviously if they're not comfortable, or if you're not comfortable reading just like that, that's absolutely fine. Then the rest of us can stay on and listen. It's whatever you feel most comfortable with. So
we all stay on. Everybody stay on. That's much better.
Absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. So what we'll do is we'll just mute ourselves. So it'll just be you talking, but obviously we're all here as well. We can still hear you. Introduce yourself, introduce your books. Now, I have actually got some front covers of your book. So which book is it you're going to be reading from? I can show both front covers. Hang on a second. There's one here.
That one.
You're going to be reading from this one. That was a good guess, wasn't it? I know. I have also got this
biased with female covers. I mean, I love that one, but I'm biased with female covers because I'm a woman, obviously. So I want to see myself on the cover of the book. or my gender on the cover of a book.
Fair enough. That's
Yes,
absolutely fine.
indeed.
You don't even have to like justify it. That's cool. That's fine. All right. So I'm going to leave this one up here for just a moment. So do you want me to leave this one up on the screen whilst you read?
Yep.
Yeah. And then you've
Uh-huh.
you got to hear people can look at it. And Qualia, if you are able to send me an image as well, or if you send Adam an image, because I know you have his contact details, and Adam, if you're able to forward that to me, I will gladly put yours up on the screen as well after we've been reading, after we've been listening to Elise. So, without further ado, over to you, Elise.
So I'm doing the very random thing and reading chapter 18, and it's written from a guy's point of view. So I read in first person. So chapter 18, Harris. By the time Delilah joins us, Mark has accomplished the impossible. He scrounged up all the elusive silverware in this house and has made the table set, and has set the table. Where did all of this come from? Delilah asked, gesturing at the dining table. We are having a simple tater-tot hot dish for dinner, but he served it up like a feast, like he always does. He takes date night very seriously, always has. Where did that come from? I ask at the same time, angling my chin at her. She glances at her outfit. It's called a onesie. It's a giraffe, Mark rasps. I'm aware. Their eyes meet for a few seconds, and then she adds, it's meant to keep wandering hands off my person. It's also a pointed jab at me, which I deserve. If that getup is supposed to make you any less desirable, it's not working, he tells her. No? Shall I go change into something more hideous? Mark laughs. You could wear a burlap sack and it wouldn't make a fucking difference. She walks up to him and places her hand on his shoulder. Unlike he was with me earlier, he's completely relaxed with her now. I'm sorry about earlier. Her voice is quiet, and try as hard as she does, she cannot keep the regret out of it. I didn't mean, God, this is embarrassing. Accident is the wrong word to use in this context, but it feels the most appropriate. Mark sighs and turns to fully face her, but his eyes light up with a faint glimmer of amusement. It's fine, Dee. You shouldn't have to apologize for something that comes naturally to you. Besides, I enjoyed the show. Her brow furrows. I don't know what the appropriate response to that is. He cups her face in his. I heard what you said to him, he says, then presses his lips to hers. Thank you for saying that, he finishes. She leans into his touch and her eyelids drift closed. You're not mad at me? Dee, I was never upset with you. She swallows thickly. So we're okay? He hums. With you, yes. Then he leans in and kisses her, slow and long, and she melts into his arms. Something stirs deep inside of me, a slightly foreign and uncomfortable feeling. Jealousy? So this is what Max feels. I find I don't like it. Don't be too hard on him, she says, her voice quiet and the words barely register. That is, until his eyes lift to meet mine. Defending him already? She shakes her head. That's not what that was. It's not just, I'm going to stop talking before I dig myself into an even deeper hole with you two. He roars out his laughter. Smart choice. Letting out an exasperated sigh, I run my fingers through my hair. Dirty blonde hair that she helps me dye twice a month. As I take them both in. For the time being, I'm content to watch them, how they interact with each other, what our new normal is going to look like with her. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of your date night, she eventually says. I am honored. Mark shakes his head. That's another thing we need to discuss, he says as he ushers her toward the table. She stops a few feet shy of it. I'm gonna move that place setting if you don't mind. Mark frowns. Why? No one sits in that chair, not for 18 years. That's Simone's seat. It's just there, I offer, but he cuts me off. H, let it go. He interjects, doing as she asks, and moving the setting. See, that's where we differ, Mark and I. He never questioned Delilah's devotion to Simone all these years. He just took it all in stride. He's been in this house several times and never questioned why the place is a shrine to her, or why the house is basically a fortress. That's because Mark is the one who meets people where they are at. He gives them what they ask for and also what they need. He'll ask questions, but only when it's vital. Ross is more than willing to be the fall guy for when things go south, since he makes for a much more believable villain. Me, not so much. This shit is not normal. It's an unhealthy obsession with the past, one she needs to let go of already. Simone Monkworther has been the bane of my existence. I never met her, and she was a lovely person by all accounts, but she's been the one thing standing in the way of what I wanted for 15 years. So, unlike Mark, I won't be indulging Delilah in this. Now that I almost have her where I want her, I plan to do everything possible to talk her out of this obsession, to talk her into letting it go, to convince her that it's just a seat, because I'll be damned if I let her legally dead ex girlfriend get in the way of our forever. No time like the present. Delilah, don't you think it's time to let it the fuck go, H? Mark bites out as he helps her into his seat, even going so far as to do the gentlemanly thing and push her chair in. That's usually my job, but we have much more important things to discuss. It's okay, Delilah says. You said you wanted to talk, and I suppose that's as good a place to start as any. Mark paints me with a glare before he goes about dishing our food. It's hard work resisting the urge to roll my eyes at him. You realize that's just a chair, right? I say, settling into my seat. An inanimate object, one that holds no true. You know what? I'll just come right out and say it. It makes no sense for you to continue holding a place at the table for someone who's gone. She squares her shoulders. This is non negotiable, and I don't expect you to understand. Try me, I say dryly. She picks up a fork and moves her food around on her plate. No, she says. There's a reason you and I don't talk about the Brewer McWhorter feud. And given your attitude, we never will. Your interest in knowing about her doesn't strike me as genuine, and I refuse to have the it's time to move on conversation with anyone, much less you. We, I start. Speak for yourself, Margaret. I am not asking you to replace her. You didn't have to, she says. Your actions speak louder than your words. She purses her lips and mullers over. You know what? Your words do too. Calling that an inanimate object dismisses what it symbolizes. I won't have that. Delilah, I start. No, you change your name and your appearance when you turned 18. You dye your hair, something I help you with. Yet you don't hear me dismissing it as superficial. Do I think that sometimes? Yes. But then I get why you're doing it, if not how you choose to go about it. That's what I'm being supportive of as your best friend. You're not the only one going about your healing process in questionable ways. So it's not your place to decide the right or wrong way for me to do this. I would never ask you to give up such a large part of yourself. I try. Kind of sounds like you are, Mark chimes in, taking her side. The traitor. That said, she continues, I won't entertain any more of this talk about keeping and claiming and owning. To you, it's just words. But what that tells me is you expect there to be no room for anyone else besides you two. I can't have that. And if that's why you two came here tonight, then leave. And when I say leave, I don't just mean physically. A tense silence descends upon us. Delilah pokes and stabs at her dinner, barely getting in a few bites. Mark stares at me, his shoulders squared like hers, the unspoken warning in his eyes. Fix this. The thing is, I don't know how to fix this. I'm a selfish bastard. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. So it goes without saying it's hard to articulate the necessary words in my brain, much less speak them into existence. So Mark does it for me. You say is a lot. I wasn't expecting that. Neither was Delilah, it would seem. She blinks and then turns to face him. What? You say is a lot, he repeats. When talking about her, you use the word is, as in you believe she's still alive. Why is that? She sets the fork down and folds her arms across her chest. Why are you asking me that? Because I'm curious. Maybe not as nosy as H is, just genuinely curious. She huffs out a breath and her lips press into a fine line. We all want what we want, he continues, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to know why you still think she's alive. She shifts in her seat. I just do, and I don't expect you to understand it either. He chuckles. I'm the more open minded one between H and me. I firmly believe our past greatly contributes to who we are today. Besides, I'm not asking you to give her up, am I? No, but you would do anything Harris asked you to do, wouldn't you? Including turning me into his sexual plaything. The smile slides right off his face. Not everything, D. Fuck closure. You believe Simone is alive, then she's alive. You want her back? Not a problem. I'll find her and I'll bring her to you. Permanently, if that's what you want. It's that simple, huh? She's skeptical, and I don't blame her. Mark can accomplish a lot of things, but this is a long shot. Yeah, it really is that simple, he tells her. The world is not that big, and my resources are vast. Just say the word. The expression on her face morphs from a healthy dose of skepticism into pure fear. I can't explain it, but that turns me the fuck on. And I know for a fact it does for him too. I don't believe you, she eventually says. His brow lifts. Is that a challenge? And what if it is? I don't do challenges, D. I don't do ultimatums either. If you want something, just fucking say the word. 4 words. I want it back. Delilah flinches at his words, and my cock twitches at her response. I'm not sure what's wrong with me that her discomfort brings me such pleasure. If anything, I want to wipe that look off her face. I only want to see the look of sweet pleasure when we finally claim her for our own. But not tonight, it would seem. She uncrosses her arms and tucks them under her thighs. Why would you do that? 3 words, D, Mark says. You are ours. That's not going to change. He says slowly, with utmost certainty and a damning finality to his tone. His body language reinforces this too. You can run from it, hide, or deny it all you want, but you will always be ours. I still like the sound of ours. I still like the sound of that. Ours. She does too. A pink hue floods her cheeks, slowly spreading down her neck. She looks away from him, reaches for her glass of water. A few sips later, she sets it back down, worrying her bottom lip as she picks up her fork. What's it gonna take? Mark's gaze flickers to where she has her bottom lip pinned with her teeth. Do I play nice? Or do I play hardball? Does it have to be one or the other, she says. With you, yes, since nothing else seems to be working. She turns to me, tucking a loose curse of brown hair behind her ear. You're being very uncharacteristically quiet over there. I shrug as Mark answers for me. He's in a timeout. A timeout? What for? Wandering hands, foot in the mouth, that sort of thing. So, what's it gonna take, D? Play nice or play hardball? She huffs out a breath as she sets her fork down and then shoves her plate to the side. Let's say a small part of me is willing to entertain this discussion. What are the rules? Mark leans forward and sets his elbows on the table. For starters, you either come live with us or we come live here with you. Confusion swirls in her eyes. You live here? He nods, a glint of amusement in his eyes, as is the odd little curve to his mouth. That's absurd, she says as she waves a hand around. Barely fit in here. And it will be an even tighter squeeze when Dahlia moves back in, even more so when the baby comes. Exactly. You couldn't stomach living here with me, much less with Dahlia. And this isn't what you're accustomed to. Normal people seek to upgrade their living conditions, but you live in a fucking estate. So why would you want to downsize your lifestyle? He laughs. We lived in a shoebox apartment when I was a kid. That was back when Mom was hiding us from Dad. Those were my favorite memories with her, so it would be just like old times. Except compared to that, this is heaven. And I could stomach just about anything. And so will H. Just know that this dual household thing won't work for either one of us, so we might as well nip it in the bud right now. She frowns. Tight quarters or sprawling mansion. Those are my only options? Yeah, those are your only options. And also, you need to make up your mind soon, or I'll be forced to decide for you. You know what will happen if it comes to that. She shakes her head, even though she does. She was there the last time this happened 7 years ago. It happened in this very house, in this living room, over on that fucking couch. Those were fun times. Not. Mark reaches into his pant pocket, pulls out a notebook, and slides it over to her. What's this? She picks it up and turns it over. A book? Her gaze slides to mine. What is this? Your book of wishes, Mark answers. Wishes, lists, demands, whatever you want to call it. Anything your heart desires, write it in there and I'll make it happen. She turns to me. Did you get one of these? Of course he did, Mark says. Just who do you take me for? I was asking Harris, she says, cutting him off. And when I don't answer, she continues. Look, we're supposed to be having a discussion about whatever this is. So this timeout thing doesn't really work for me. Perhaps we could pick this up another day, when you are more chatty or when Mark is a lot less irritable. She rises to her feet and Mark and I reach for her by instinct, only for her to shrug us both off. Hands off my person, you two. And when neither one of us releases her, she blows out a breath. Guys, I'm tired. It's been a long week. Either we wrap this up quickly or pick this up another day. We both tighten our hold on her. Fine. She sighs and sits back down. Say I'm moving with you. Then what? Mark interlaces his fingers with hers and leans back in his seat. Call it a partnership. 3 of us, we're equals. A partnership, she repeats. It is that simple? At its core, yes. It really is that simple. There are layers and nuances to it, and we'll have plenty of time to go over it. But that's basically what it is, a partnership. Then there are open, honest conversations. We have those fairly often. She scrounges her nose. You mean the kind where everyone knows everything about everyone? Basically, but it's not that literal. The things that affect everyone, he says as he gives me a pointed look, need to be shared. Like, she prompts. What happened 7 years ago? He says. Oh, she hums and squirms in her seat. I do too, but I hone in on her discomfort instead. Maybe not tonight, I say for the first time, not to give her a reprieve, but for selfish reasons. Now is not the time to rehash that day. And to answer your question, yes, I have one of those. He gave me one 16 years ago. It's how the name change thing happened. That was on my list. She nods and leans back in her seat. I need more time to think this over. Not that this is what I signed up for when I... Forget it. You just do whatever you want, won't you? You planning on giving me the same treatment you gave Harris? Not unless you force my hand, Dee. So, how much time do you need? She smiles. You're very pushy, you know that? No, just persistent. More like pushy. You should get that tattooed on your sleeve. Pushy Mark. It can be the first of many since you don't have any. Only you would think that, he says. Huh, so you do, huh? Where? Takes a moment to study her. What do you think, H? What does Harris have to do with this? Well, I have to be naked for you to see them. Doesn't exactly bode well for your hands-off request. And this? She lifts the interlaced fingers. Not exactly hands-off, Mark. I'm not the only one holding on, but don't worry, we'll stay forever if that's what you want. Her face tilts upwards and she lets out an exasperated sigh. Just for tonight, then. Since you two have both made yourselves at home, I take it you two are staying the night. She rolls her shoulders forward and then backward. I already know it's pointless relegating you both to the couch or one of the other bedrooms in this house since you just find another excuse to wind up in my bed again. Oh, good, you're catching on, Mark says sarcastically, and she rolls her eyes at that. Actually, I would prefer it if you didn't, but I'll save my breath since you two will do whatever you want. Just as long as you keep your hands to yourself, I don't care where you sleep. The doors are locked and the alarms are set, so no one leaves until I disarm them tomorrow. And I would like my hands back now if you don't mind. You gonna run again? Mark asks. No, I'm going to bed. Alone. The end. Well, it changes POV, but we're ending there.
Yay, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for reading that. That was sexy and everything. I know what's going on there.
That was an intense scene. It really was an intense scene. You can feel the tension between the characters from the very beginning.
It's like in the middle-ish of. I probably should have picked one at the beginning. I don't know. I just did Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, and that's the one I landed on.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Good way to
That was
pick.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a menage,
A throuple? Yeah.
a couple with two girls and one girl, two guys.
Two guys.
The guys have they've been in a very long-term relationship, and I guess they've been friends with her for a long time. And they've both wanted her in their relationship for a long time, but she has a very unhealthy obsession and attachment to her legally dead ex-girlfriend. And yes, I use the words legally dead on purpose because she's not dead.
I kept hearing that. I kept hearing that going, she's alive. My question is, does Harris have something to do with her disappearance?
No, because they were all, so the characters are all 34 when the story happens. This happened 19 years ago. So they were all kids when it happened.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So he wouldn't have had anything to do with it. So basically the girl is one of the babies who were bought, so to speak.
Oh.
And the ex-girlfriend is the one she was supposed to end up with. And she's legally dead, but she's still so attached to her because their connection was one of those that you really cannot duplicate it. Well, I guess she found out with two people and then she just spent years in denial and fighting it because she want to project on them. And then things happened and then she ended up with them in bed once and then they decided that keeping her. So they both showed up at her house saying, "You're ours and we're not letting you go." And then she's entertaining the conversation with them, knowing she's going to say no in the end. But she doesn't, obviously, hence we have a book. But all three of them are not good people. I should probably phrase it that way because one of the guys is the illegitimate son of a mafia boss. And he's an attorney, but he's a very shady character to begin with. He's very possessive. He has a rule or a mantra that nobody leaves him. So if you leave him, he will fetch you and bodily bring you back.
Wow.
And he has very tight reins on the people he loves, and they just let him do what he wants because they know that puts him at peace, puts his mind at ease. But Delilah does not go along with it. She fights him every step of the way because it's not her thing to just follow. And then the other guy in the relationship, Harris, his dad basically threw him out when he turned 18 because the dad wanted the perfect son, and being bisexual doesn't bode well for that perfect son image. So he kicked his own son out. And basically he's a biracial man who spends 1834, so I'm bad at math, but half his life shunning that side of his identity. So he does things like dye his hair blonde because he's light enough to pass. And Bob doesn't question it because he's more the kind of guy who's like, this is what you need, so I'm gonna let you have that. I'm not gonna force you to be black. I'm not gonna force you to be white. That's what makes you happy, so I'm just gonna let you go along with it. He also does a lot of shady things too. Like he makes sex toys for a living, but it's really torture devices. When his boyfriend is a mafia guy and he always has people to test his torture devices on for the fun of it. They're not good people. I should just say it out there. None of them are good people. And Delilah herself is a little bit of a sociopath because she knows that they're like that, and that's what draws her to them. And that's something she fights herself with.
Dark. I'm loving it.
Because even her ex-girlfriend was exactly the same way, and they were kids, and she was like, yes, I love that. And then now she's like, I found this with 2 adults, and I'm just fighting it the whole way. So triggers galore. Did I say that in the beginning?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing it with us. It was so dark and wonderful.
It really was. I thought also what we could do is do a little bit of a showcase of front covers. So, Polly, are you okay if I share your front cover with everyone? Because we've seen. Yeah, so just to recap, so this is Elise's front cover, this one, and so we've got Touch of Heaven, and we have Taste of Hell. I love the titles; they're awesome.
I know, right?
And then we have Qualia. This is your one.
Ooh,
so
Ooh.
nice.
Yeah.
Is that a spaceship?
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty good.
That's
I
so
like it.
dope.
It looks like there's a monster. I think it's in Riddick, where it looks very similar to that, but it's like a monster. It's like a rather than a spaceship.
A lot of
Did you
a lot
choose
of
that
the
deliberately?
spaceships in the yeah, a lot of the spaceships in this universe are very bird-like.
Oh.
Very interesting.
And so this is Esmeralda kind of floating in space with Risorgimento coming to save her.
Nice. Is it? So is
But
this ship? So are the ships just normal ships? They're not like sentient or anything like that. They're just like spaceships.
depends on the ship.
I love that. A little bit intrigue there. It's like awesome. That's really good. I like the front cover. Okay, so we now have Reese. This is your one. Oh, sorry. Did you have something else you wanted to add, Qualia? Sorry.
Nope.
Oh, okay. This is Reese. This is Trapped. Very sexy.
Oh, I love women on covers. I'm just going to say that again. I love it when there are women on covers, especially when it's Black women, because I'm a Black woman myself. So again, I want to see myself on the book cover.
Yes.
Hey, I'm with you on that one. And and the next 2 covers are just as intriguing.
With beautiful
Now,
photographs.
yeah, they are.
Thank you.
They really are. And I've got, hang on, I'm just scrolling through my lovely little list of photos of front covers. Oh my goodness. Oh, Adam, so I don't have yours on here, Adam.
Really?
Yeah, really. Really, really.
Say, hold it up to the
Adam's
screen.
like, here it is.
Let me just hang on. There you go. You go on, you show yours again.
There it is.
That's the
Let's
Mantis
see.
variant. That's the one that's out at the moment. And the one that you're in the process of publishing is in the works. So
Yes.
that's, yeah.
We'll show that
We'll leave
cover
that one.
later.
Yeah, we'll leave that one for now. I need that photo so I can put it on here for you.
I'll send you the photo. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Mine is it's more tricky to see because mine's a bit more of like a montage of different photos of front covers. So mine's this.
Oh yes.
So yeah, you got
So cool.
That's a good image. Yeah.
I'm a very good artist. Yeah, so there you go. So Of Blood and Bow is coming out later on this year, and the Collapse, which is the spaceship one that we saw there, that is coming out later on this year as well. But that is going to be released early on my website, and it's going to be completely free for anyone who subscribes to my website and joins me there. And yeah. So now, I just want to have like a vague idea. Where are we standing with villains? Do you kind of like, because I feel like there's so many different opinions on villains. Do you feel like villains are a key part of the story? Do you like villains? Do you love to hate them? At least sounds like she wants to have a redemption arc going on with them once.
We love them. They're wonderful. I mean, they make our stories more well-rounded is not a word I'm going for, but pretty darn close.
Richer. The stories are definitely richer by having
for sure
different personality types, especially harsh personality types. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Everybody's not. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. We have to have some type of balance, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, in the chat, there was a few remarks about villains. So we have, hang on, where is it? Doc said about Megamind. He likes Megamind, obviously. And then Reese, you had a very interesting remark to make. So there was a remark that was made about, so Harmony said this: death is the ultimate villain. And then the response that came from Reese was just like, bang.
It's supposed to say, isn't it though? And I mistyped, of course. I'm telling y'all, my typing skills are awful.
Is
Today.
it
Like,
though?
isn't it though? I'm like, isn't it though?
It was awesome. It was just like,
it came off. It came off really bad.
It was awesome. So poor
Like,
Harmony
isn't
was
it
a bit like, oh, okay.
I'm like, isn't it though? I'm like, mortality is a daily battle, and it's a mental thing for some people. You know, some people are truly obsessed with their mortality, and that's one of the things where I was like, so I agree with you, Harmony. I promise, I agree with you. I didn't realize I mistyped it until I looked at it again. I'm like, oh.
You're probably sitting at home going, oh my god, some poor 13-year-olds going, oh my gosh, she's so mean. And then we've got Adam, you had a really interesting Harmony actually added to that and said, what about unrequited love, which I think could also, that's a very good point actually. If you think about lots of love stories, particularly Disney movies do this very well, where it's kind of like and then Adam, you had an awesome comment which was about religion. It's another really poignant.
Yeah, I don't name almost any villains in this because I have such massive groups of horrible people that I just name them as like, these people are coming after and like hunting people. Like, just there's too many of them to even bother naming them in this first book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. My one tends to be her biggest enemy is actually her own mind, because of the torture she experienced when she was kept captive. The monsters that she fights in the real world for her are actually also metaphorically representing the torture that she's putting herself through as well. So yeah, that's really cool. So I saw those comments, so I thought it's quite nice to sort of share that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. I've really enjoyed the conversation today. It's been absolutely amazing. Elise, would you come back and visit us again?
Yeah, this was a blast.
Yay!
And Kuala, you are also very welcome to return as well. You've both been amazing. It's so lovely to speak to authors and also find out about genres. And at least, even though we had different opinions about villains, I really loved your ideas. It was awesome. I might take some of that on board, maybe. I'll think about it.
Gruesome deaths. Gruesome deaths.
Gruesome deaths. Yes.
Yes. For sure. And I know, Adam, you've sent out some Discord. So just a quick note on that. So we're in the process of building a community on Discord with writers, poets and authors alike. We've got some amazing beta readers on there who are pretty active, who are always keen to help and be involved. And obviously, if you'd like to come and join us, then you can DM us. Our links are in the description below the video. And you know, come along. It's a very supportive group, and yeah, it's just really open for authors, writers, and poets, because and screenwriters as well. But I think that if we start opening it out to the entire population, then it starts becoming a little bit muddy in terms of the amount of sharing and support that's out there, because it's meant to be helpful. So anyway, I want to say a massive thank you to both Qualia and Elise for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure, you know, seeing you again, Qualia, and also meeting you as well, Elise. And also a huge thank you to my lovely co-hosts, Reese, storyteller, and also Adam. And Yeah, and with that, I'm going to sign off and I'm going to say fare thee well. Have an absolutely wonderful evening and weekend or whatever you're doing. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.